Alrighty, welcome into JumpStart Sports. I'm Steven Shoemaker. This is our first podcast we are ever doing. This is the pilot, our first episode. Jason, how are we doing today?
We are doing just swell. Thank you for that introduction. As Shu said, we are Jumpstart Sports, ready to jumpstart that morning.
Let's get it going, baby. This is let's tell the folks a little bit about ourselves. I mean, we've known each other for quite some time. We share a lot of passions. One of those is sports, and it's kind of what we do on a regular basis. We just talk sports. So we kind of figured why not, do a podcast and share with the world our knowledge of sports and our weirdness, right?
Yeah, weirdness for sure. We basically do this every other day anyway. It's just recording it and making this actually a thing. And this has been something, I think both of us have wanted for a long time. So just ready to shoot the shit and talk a little bit about football and basketball. Today being football, though.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about a bunch of different things over the course of time. But yeah, just getting right into it. I know it would have been nice to start week one. We're kind of starting midway through the season, but I think we picked a pretty interesting week to start, talking about football, the NFL. Some craziness went on. A lot of top players. I mean, good timing as well because Jason and I are in a couple fantasy football leagues together. We don't just share the passion of football, but fantasy as well. And one of our leagues we're in with our college friends from Muhlenberg College, located in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
The Lehigh Valley.
The Lehigh Valley, our alma mater.
That's right.
We played each other this week, and we always have this big rivalry. And I think Mr. Jonathan Taylor kind of ruined your weekend, would you say?
I would say he spanked me.
He really went off. 5 touchdowns. Was he the youngest running back to do so?
Yeah, I mean, he's already leading the league in rushing, already broke 1,000. Honestly, if Derrick Henry didn't get hurt, it would just be him and Derrick Henry who were competing for the rushing title, probably. But yeah, they really hurt.
When it comes to fantasy football, I've always believed, and I'm sure many people agree with me on this, that you need good running backs to win. And on your one team, you have 3 really good running backs, and Aaron Jones, unfortunately, was injured. Najee Harris, you have Darrell Henderson is stepping up for the Rams. But you do need running backs to win. And I remember with my second pick, I saw Jonathan Taylor there, and his rookie year was pretty impressive. But coming out of Wisconsin, I don't know, I wasn't too high on him, and I apologize, Jonathan, Mr. Taylor, because you proved me wrong. And
it's actually so funny that you say that because I conversely was very high on Jonathan Taylor, especially when we were playing our Dynasty League as well, and I was trying to move up to number 1 just to grab him. However, that didn't work out, and then for whatever reason, I was just lower because I was one of those people who felt trapped to, like, I guess, Carson Wentz sucking and the Colts O-line being a little hurt because of Quentin Nelson to start the year. And I just talked myself out of him. Not that it didn't work out, but I mean, I really proved myself wrong that even when you have good running backs, you still suck.
And yeah, and I'm happy for Carson as an Eagles fan. It's good to see him doing pretty well. Of course,
he is doing very well.
Yeah, and hopefully he keeps that going with them. They have a big matchup this weekend coming up against the Bucs, so that'll definitely be an interesting matchup because I feel like most people would think the Bucs would blow them out, but with what the Colts were able to do this past week against Josh Allen, who was projected to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league this year, he's looked a little bit shaky out there.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, it's interesting because the Colts offense also looks so potent with Michael Pittman. I just think he's really coming into his own. What a bust Paris Campbell has been comparatively to what he looked like at Ohio State when he was even overshadowing Terry McLaurin way back when with Dwayne Haskins. But it is really interesting how much they beat up on the number 1 defense in the NFL. I feel like no one was expecting that to be happening. So it was really interesting. Even their defenses look really good.
They have looked good. I expect Jonathan Taylor to stay hot. I don't think he's gonna, you know, replicate his numbers. It's pretty hard to score 5 touchdowns every single week, but um, their offense has looked pretty steady. But Carson does, he has a history of making boneheaded plays. He has an injury history.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just depends what's going to happen. I do. Do you see them making the playoffs? Is that a guaranteed lock?
I don't think the Colts are a guaranteed lock, but they've been very hot.
Father. You're hot.
Arguably the hottest NFL team over the past 4 weeks, I would say. Because I feel like they started out pretty shaky, but then once it came together, they've been, unstoppable. And obviously that run is, the run game is top notch in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor is not getting stopped. The O-line is pushing. I feel like they're really hitting probably near ceiling, but I don't see them stopping. I just don't know who would stop them.
Unless I'm missing someone, they haven't really had an elite running back since Edgar and James back there.
Well, they had the ghost of Frank Gore.
They did have him, and I feel like this is the really first excitement in Indianapolis since Andrew Luck when he took them, the whole Deflategate story.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of interesting to think, what if Andrew Luck never retired? Because with this team, current team with Andrew Luck, what does that look like? Are they favorites even, with Jonathan Taylor behind and this O-line being built like it has been over the years, with Braden Smith, I think it is, and Quentin Nelson as well. So I don't know. What do I think about?
Absolutely. Well, one thing I look forward to every Monday at halftime is Chris Berman's fastest 3 minutes. Just kind of recapping the week.
Mm-hmm.
So we can try to do that. Whoop! Excuse me. He's very exciting. I love Chris Berman. But let's just kind of get into some of the games. If there's any games that really caught your eye, obviously we can just kind of start off right from the top on Thursday.
Yep.
It was a very boring game in my opinion.
I agree.
The Patriots D really looked solid. The Falcons, they're just not looking too great. Matt Ryan's time has come. Time to put that on ice.
Natty Ice.
Put that on ice. I mean, they're just not looking good. I mean, obviously Calvin Ridley's doing what's best for himself right now, so they're certainly missing him in that offense.
Yep.
But they looked horrible. They didn't score a single point in that game. Mac Jones is looking pretty good. He might be the front runner for Rookie of the Year as of right now, but that was definitely a very frustrating game to watch. These Thursday games are not always the most thrilling games to watch, which is interesting to me because it's your start to the week when it comes to football. I feel like they should try better next year to try to get some more favorable matchups in there.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't one of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think Thursday games in general haven't been very good over the past, 5 years probably, maybe even longer. And you're totally right. I mean, Mac Jones looks like the real deal. It seems like they really were missing the pocket presence quarterback that they didn't have in Cam Newton last year. And, obviously things happen where San Fran was going to take him third overall, and then they probably just got bored of the selection because he's so reminiscent of Jimmy Garoppolo and those types of pocket quarterbacks. But I mean, he's looked really like the real deal. And I think once they add a little bit more as well, come next year, I mean, they're arguably also one of the hottest teams in the league. I mean, they're the 1 seed now of the AFC East over the Bills, which is really interesting because no one would have thought that to start the year, especially after Cam Newton was released to start too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is going to happen. I saw somebody, I forget what the bet was, but somebody bet that I think he threw like $1 million that the Patriots are going to win the AFC, and
Nice.
The payout's pretty incredible. But
yeah, it's probably nice to have that money to throw.
Yeah, it'd be nice money growing. Sure. But yeah, they're looking good. I like Damian Harris a lot in their backfield. Obviously, he was injured for a little bit. He's back now. Um, Ramondre Stevenson complements him well.
He's a stud.
They I think they're a little weak at the wide receiver position. That's for sure. They don't have that
Mhm.
Gronk Edelman core that they once had.
Yeah, yeah.
Amendola anymore, but Jacoby Myers can, he's been kind of quiet, but he can show spark at times. But I don't know. I just don't think that. I think it's a young offense. I don't think they have enough. They do have, solid defense as they've shown over the past several years.
Hmm.
Anybody who plays under Bill Belichick just wants to win, but we'll
Yep.
see what happens. I think they could sneak their way into the playoffs this year, but I just don't think they're talented enough of a team to really
Yeah.
make any noise.
I would have to agree with you. I mean, I think that the defense, like riding the defense, is great, and Mac Jones has looked incredible, especially for the talent surrounding him. I feel like even though they had a massive free agent spending, coming away with like Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, it's like fine. Johnny's been not amazing. I think Hunter Henry was definitely the better pickup of the two tight ends that they ended up, signing. But I don't know. I agree with you. I don't really see them going very far. It is kind of interesting also that their Patriots defense have been this good without Stephon Gilmore. Like
Oh yeah,
releasing didn't really do anything.
absolutely. I'm happy for Aguilar too because he was dropping everything left and right in Philly, dropping
Oh,
babies and whatnot. But
yeah.
he caught a touchdown on Thursday night, so it's exciting for him. But let's get to the upset. There was a pretty big upset this week in the NFL. Um, one of the favorite teams in the AFC and the Tennessee Titans did not look like a favorite team that's gonna make some noise this year. What kind of happened with them this week, Jay?
Well, it kind of seems like they haven't, pivoted after Derrick Henry got hurt to running a different offense. Now that they're going like a running back by committee with Adrian Peterson, Deontay Foreman, and I think Jeremy McNichols as well. It kind of, I mean, they just don't look as explosive as an offense. Julio has been terrible this year. AJ Brown, and he's also hurt in his defense, but he kind of looks like a shell of himself, which is funny considering, to start the year when that whole thing happened and he got traded from the Falcons, it looked like the biggest steal of all time. But, obviously it just proves that the rest of the league was right for not trying to get in on Julio. And AJ Brown's obviously also been dealing with mental health issues. He came out and was talking about, which, hopefully everything is okay with him. And
I think he just needs to start eating more Chipotle because he claimed he had food poisoning, which I'm sure he did. But
right,
then he comes out that week and went off. I forget how many fantasy points he had, but he really
like the
balled
Michael
out that
Jordan
game.
flu game.
Yeah, he really balled out that game. So I don't know. Maybe he just needs to eat some more Chipotle before his games to.
I usually think like that's why I lose fantasy football is because I don't have enough Chipotle also.
Yeah, I mean, it usually makes me poop my pants, but
Right.
maybe needs more of that. And like you said, Julio, I think his days, are behind him. I think
Mhm.
he left his prime in Atlanta.
Yep.
And it's not that Tannehill's a bad quarterback. I wouldn't consider him a gunslinger, but I
Mhm.
just think he's been hurt pretty much the whole year. Just doesn't have that step that athleticism he once had.
Yep.
So who knows when he'll come back off the IR? Maybe he can help them out in some ways in the red zone towards the end of the season. But I did think the Titans with Derrick Henry were one of the favorites, and now he's gone, and he's an animal. But without him,
Yeah.
it's just hard to see them really making any noise if they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Derrick Henry is a specimen of a human. The fact that he's even probably, it's questionable to come back in January. I mean, it looked terrible when he went down with the injury in the first place. So that would be incredible. And if he comes back, like I think if the Titans can set, I think there's a real shot Titans will sneak into the playoffs. And I think once they get into the playoffs, their defense has been like okay. I think the Bud
Yeah.
Dupree signing like looked solid, but he already is on IR, which it was a risk. Like he tore his ACL, I believe, last year. So it was always a risk that he'd get re-injured. But if Derrick Henry can come back even like 85% of what he was, I mean, that dude is tough to tackle. He is a machine.
It's a big man.
He is a big man. He's got muscles on top of his muscles.
But another team like the Titans as well. There's I was high on them this year, and they have kind of been disappointing this year. They really dominated the Chiefs, which the Chiefs have been shaky. But another team kind of heading to the NFC, similarly, who I had high hopes for this year, but they've just kind of been tanking at 3-7 right now. The Seattle Seahawks. I know they lost Russell for a while with that finger injury. Tyler Lockett started off well. DK Metcalf hasn't been as good as he was last year. The Chris Carson just can't stay healthy.
Yeah. And he had neck surgery that ended the season too already prematurely. So, I mean, it's been a tough go for him, I would say, and I think it proves that maybe Pete Carroll isn't the coach everyone thought he was, because I mean he said it himself in a presser that without Russell Wilson he probably would have been fired.
I think he's done after this year. If they keep,
I think it's a good shot he retires as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've been very disappointing. Their defense has never been good since the Legion of Boom ended. Bobby Wagner's still a stud, but Jamal Adams he's okay.
I just don't get how you can lose. They're a good team, don't get me wrong. They're one of the top teams in the NFC, but I just don't get how you can lose to the Cardinals without Kyler, without DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly.
You just can't lose that game. You need to win that game. Their offense has been non-existent the past couple weeks. Really, once Russell got hurt, and that Monday night game when he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since then, it's just been kind of going downhill for them.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way even like when they were playing the Packers as well. They didn't look the same, but everyone wrote it off to be like, it's for Russell's first game back. Like, of course, the offense is going to become more explosive again. And then it just didn't happen to work out that way. Obviously, losing the Cardinals is terrible, but losing to Colt McCoy on the Cardinals, I think, is way worse. And I mean, it's just. But also in defense of the Cardinals team, Cliff Kingsbury has to be a front runner for the head coach of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
But
for sure.
Yeah, so I think moving on, unfortunately, this was probably one of the ugliest games of the week, and that really rivals the Dolphins game as well with the Jets. But the Lamar-less Ravens. So Lamar ended up having an illness, which kept him out of this game, but it ended up becoming who is it? Whoever the backup is, who I'm just blanking on right now for the Ravens, and it became him and Andy Dalton, and that is just not the matchup you want. But I mean, the Ravens still somehow persevered because the Bears, and I know Bears fans everywhere are calling for Matt Nagy's job, which understandably they have been awful. Allen Robinson has looked terrible. They don't give him the ball. If there was ever a team to ruin someone's draft stock, or sorry, not draft stock, trade value, the Bears would be that team for Allen Robinson.
The name you're thinking of is Tyler Huntley.
Yes, Tyler Huntley.
I wouldn't have thought of that either because I had never heard of him before this week. But he wasn't a standout player, but he led them to 2 touchdown drives within a minute, I think it was, towards the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Devonta Freeman showed some spark. I know you, as a Giants fan, wish you might have done a little bit more for you guys last year with that, but he was always solid in Atlanta, and then he has an injury history for sure, but he helped them out. Hollywood Brown's been solid this year, but
he was out this game too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mark Andrews is just a stud.
He's been so good, yeah.
And they're a good team. They're going to be a playoff team this year. I don't know. It's kind of just, I feel like it's in Lamar's hands. It's just kind of what he's able to do. But it was a very interesting game. They snuck out the win, and we'll see what happens with the Bears this week too, because they have think it was announced Justin Fields has a ribs injury, so Andy
Mhm.
Dalton was named the starter for their Thanksgiving game. We'll get to those Thanksgiving games a little bit later on, but we'll see what happens. But really, an interesting game for me was Cam Newton's return home.
Mhm.
Even though they lost to the Washington football team, it still sounds so weird to say that.
It is so
But
weird to say it.
even though they lost to them and it was a good game, Cam looked pretty good out there for all of the I feel like negativity that's been put on him ever since the Patriots cut him.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think it's almost poetic. Like he was playing against Ron Rivera in his first home game. Ron Rivera's coming back also to Carolina as well. I think he's looked pretty good. I mean, I think this is a team that has a ton of weapons. Sam Darnold was terrible, is terrible, and the fact that they signed him to a $10 million deal shows they have absolutely no faith in Sam Darnold. It shows that the second round pick they gave up for Sam Darnold was a complete waste. Great job by the Jets, and which that's few and far between that you ever say that. And I think Cam has looked really good. It's kind of he basically had like a what he he had like a 10-game vacation, so he's coming back fresh. He has DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall, CMC obviously has done a lot. Even Chuba Hubbard is a solid, replacement for CMC, since that man unfortunately cannot stay healthy.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. There's so much negativity put on Cam. Like I remember at the beginning in
Mhm.
training camp, they're saying that Mac Jones knew the playbook better than him,
Right.
and that was kind of a head scratcher for me because Cam was on the team for a year before that. Mac Jones is a rookie, so how is it possible that he knows the playbook better than him? But
Yeah.
they
That
cut him
shows
for a
up.
reason, and he got this. I would say this is his last chance, end his career where he began it.
Mhm.
Um, they're obviously not a playoff team, but we'll see what happens. McCaffrey looked pretty good out there. He caught a
Yep.
touchdown. He played well. If he can stay healthy, we'll see what can happen. But
Yeah, and they have a legit defense. They have a very legit defense. So it would be interesting to see them sneak into the playoffs. And who knows? I mean, I think this year in general for football, it's so open. Like I don't think you can say there's a favorite because I think the Chiefs have looked terrible. I think the Bucks have looked pretty good, but I mean, I guess you'd have to say they're the favorites outside of the Rams, who have looked terrible too in the past couple games. And partly it's because Matt Stafford is hurt as well. Um, but clearly losing Robert Woods was a massive, massive problem because they lost like arguably one of their best run blockers in Robert Woods. He's like a do it all guy. So I think that was unfortunate. But and the 49ers, which we can pivot to right now as well, have had a fantastic 2-game stretch. Debo has looked great. Ayuk is now out of the doghouse for whatever reason. Shanahan decided to put him there and played Trent Sherfield over him, which made no sense. Can tell you as a person who drafted him everywhere in fantasy football, makes no sense. What a waste of a pick. But I'm not salty about it.
yeah,
And Kittle looks great too.
yeah, Kittle's been kind of slow this year. Not He hasn't had that spark that people wanted in him, but the 49ers, they have looked solid these past couple weeks for sure. Their defense has really showed up big time, and yes, it's the Jaguars. They're just kind of a lost cause. I mean, just everything with that Urban Meyer's done this year, I think he's got to go. Trevor Lawrence, I do believe, is their quarterback. As bad as he's looked, he was the number one pick for a reason. He's a stud at Clemson. I think he's your man of the future for sure. It's just the offense. Like I feel like you could put Tom Brady in that offense, and he would, it wouldn't go well. It's just kind of the offense. They don't really have many weapons. Lost DJ Chark, lost Travis Etienne before the season even started. James Robinson has been okay. That offense is just kind of a lost cause.
The
But
offensive line doesn't help them either. It's one of the worst in the league.
yeah,
Um,
they're just
I
they're just
think Visca's
they're just
been
a
hurt
bad
too.
team.
They're just a bad team. I mean, they're a very poorly run franchise, always known to that to be the case, except for like that one year, I think, 2016, where Blake Bortles, the boat, for whatever reason, somehow took that team to the playoffs against the Steelers. I believe they lost.
Well, they had Uncle Lenny back there, and Uncle Lenny was going
Right.
off.
That's true. Uncle Lenny is a playoff Lenny kind of guy.
They had Jalen Ramsey. That defense was incredible.
That defense was insane. But then my point is, like, with how terrible they are, I mean, they just give pieces away. Like CJ Henderson, it was their first round draft pick. He was, a corner with a ton of potential. And in their defense, like, who knows like what he was like in the locker room. Maybe that had a part of it. But they just like gave him right to the Panthers. For what? Like, for what? He's the first round talent of last year. They also traded Joe Schobert, which was really a terrible trade. And the Steelers, just welcomed them with open arms, because I think all they gave was a 5th round pick for a dude who commanded a ton of money after playing incredible throughout his career for the Browns. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just it wasn't a good matchup. It was clear the 49ers were going to win that game. There were several bad matchups this week, just with like the Browns and Lions was not going to be an exciting game to watch. I don't know if the Lions will win a game this season. The Browns are, kind of lost getting rid of OBJ. I mean, Chubbs looked great, but I just don't think Baker's the guy to lead them there. That was just a tough game to watch. Obviously, the Dolphins and Jets isn't really going to get too many viewers to tune into that one. The Dolphins pulled away with that one. But if I can skip ahead, I mean, obviously, I'm a big Eagles fan.
But unfortunately, I do.
I think Jalen Hurts looked really good in that game. It was a fun game to watch for them because the Saints are really depleted right now. They don't have a quarterback. They lost Alvin Kamara. I mean, hopefully he'll be back soon, but he's been hurt. Michael Thomas is done for the year. So they just don't really have any type of offense. They had to bring Mark Ingram back from the Texans. Their defense is still pretty solid, but for as great as their run defense is, Jalen Hurts rushed for 3 touchdowns. Miles Sanders, who did not look that great, almost rushed for 100 yards. That was a big story for the Eagles this season, is just running the football, and they finally done that, which is great. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think the Saints have any chance to make the playoffs, or is it just kind of let's get a rain check and try to start again next year?
Yeah, the Saints are a really interesting cause, in my opinion. Like, I think they don't really know what they're doing. The Jameis experiment, I think, was going okay. They're definitely, I think they're definitely in line to fight for a playoff spot. But Jameis goes down, like you said. Alvin Kamara's been hurt. Michael Thomas is gone, and what do they have? Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Adam Troutman, who had played well, got hurt. 4 to 6 weeks, he's out. It's just a disaster for them ultimately. I actually think Mark Ingram's looked pretty good, which is interesting. He's been pretty solid. The number change has been disgusting to look at. He should be 22 since he was when
14's weird.
14's weird. It's just weird. Like, I don't know. If you come back to your old team, you deserve. He's the leading rusher in Saints history. Like, he deserves it. I don't know. I mean, Trevor Siemian leading the way is a questionable call at best. I feel like Trevor Siemian has been an experiment for multiple teams that have never gone anywhere. He's just not a starting quarterback. But to go along with this, the Saints, what the hell are they doing with Taysom Hill?
They're just throwing money out the window.
What are they doing? And I get, like, it's all incentive based. I read somewhere that it actually also had to do with, like, if he becomes the starter for the next 4 years, he gets another little bit of money. But I mean, what a weird obsession Sean Payton has with Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I saw something. He's like his little son or something. He just loves him, can't let him go. But yeah. I don't know. I like how they incorporate him into the offense, plays different positions. But I don't know. I didn't think Jameis was the guy either. Unfortunately, he did look decent until he got hurt. But I think they definitely need to target a quarterback in the draft or try to make some kind of trade. Like, why not try to go after Russell Wilson? Like, I think that could definitely be productive if they are able to bring Michael Thomas back next year. Like, why not?
Yeah, and I mean that actually really realistically might be an option. Like Russell Wilson, I mean, he can't want to stay there.
No,
they've looked so bad. Their defense is pathetic. I mean, I know we already covered them, but I'm just saying they didn't have a chance.
But yeah, my Eagles they've looked decent. The defense has kind of stepped up. Darius Slay scored his 3rd touchdown this year, more than many offensive players out there, which is pretty funny. That trade from Detroit is definitely paying off for us, which is big time. We'll have a interesting matchup this upcoming week, heading to MetLife to play New York Giants of New York or New Jersey. But we'll be at that
New Jersey, but we're New York.
We'll be at that game, so it'll be fun to be there and shoot the shit and make fun of each other's teams. And who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I feel like not many people want to watch it, but it's an NFC East matchup. It's the first time we're meeting this year. I'd like to see a little bit more out of Saquon. I know they're kind of just slowly bringing him back from his injuries. They don't want to risk anything again. We'll obviously get to that Monday night game, but I don't know. I'm sure you have a lot to say about your Giants.
Yeah, and we can touch on that in a little bit after we finish the recap of the other ones. But man, it's disappointing to see Saquon. When he was finally coming back a little bit, looked a little bit like his old self against the Saints. He looked great. The Giants had no business winning that game. They're such a horrible team, but they won that game. And then, I mean, of course, he just happens to step on someone's ankle. Like that was just
wrong place, wrong time.
What'd you say?
Wrong place, wrong time. It's just
exactly
bad timing. But
yeah,
there were a lot of other great games this week, Jay. I mean, arguably, in my opinion, the game of the week was the Vikings versus the Packers. I think just stud receivers going at it. Devontae Adams had a day with 2 tutties. Justin Jefferson had 2 tutties. He went off. That's a name that is always going to be sore to me because my team could have had an opportunity at drafting him. I'm not sure why they passed on Justin Jefferson. He's just so talented. Do you think – I think this is kind of like a pretty easy answer because he's the best receiver in the league. But do you think when it's all said and done, Justin Jefferson could be as good as Devontae Adams, or is that not even a question?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I would say there's definitely a chance. Justin Jefferson is so good. I mean, it's crazy looking back at that LSU team, especially now that Jamar Chase has popped off like he has in the NFL. I mean, Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Clyde was amazing. Like, you just had all of these guys. And I think their entire O-line also got drafted during that. They were insane. But to answer your question, yes. Like, I think there's a definite shot. Like, I think you can argue Justin Jefferson's a top 3 receiver already. We're definitely top 5, in my opinion. I mean, Devontae Adams is up there. Tyreek Hill has looked not as great, but he's still, he's an incredible talent. Stephon Diggs fallen off a little bit, in my opinion. I just think the Bills haven't looked like what you thought they were going to be with their high-powered offense. I don't know. Justin Jefferson came in week 3 of last year, blew it up against the Titans, had that insane run, did the little gritty. If you could demonstrate what that is.
See you later, Justin Jefferson. Have a day.
Perfect.
I mean, I like the Vikings a lot. I know they're 5-5, and a lot of people aren't really high on Captain Kirk, but and I think it's pretty. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it's pretty clear that the Packers are going to win that division. If the Vikings can sneak their way into like a wild card spot, like don't sleep on them. Like I think they arguably have the best wide receiver duo, and Thielen and Jefferson and Dalvin. I think if he can just do Dalvin type things, he's gonna, keep going off. And if Kirk can just, that contract he got was definitely questionable, but he shows some sparks. He shows that he can be their guy. So I wouldn't sleep on Minnesota either.
Yeah. And you know what's Minnesota did that to the third best defense in the NFL in the Packers. And sure, they didn't have Jair Alexander, which is a huge loss. But Aaron Rodgers had an incredible game. He threw for almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. But they're clearly hurting without Aaron Jones. Like Aaron Jones, even though he's only going to be out a couple weeks, this is his third MCL sprain I was reading or something like that in his career. That's why he was crying after it happened and went up to his family. He knew. Thankfully, it wasn't worse for their sake, because AJ Dillon, I thought, didn't look as amazing as some hoped in relief of Aaron Jones. But that Vikings team, damn, they're resilient. That was a very good game. And I think they realistically should have been 7-3 had it not been for their own missed field goal and a field goal kicked against them to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that did they tie the Bengals, or no? They lost on that field goal in overtime.
No, I think they lost.
Okay, yeah, but
there's only been one tie this year, and I believe it was
Lions.
Yeah, the Lions and Steelers. Yeah, which was the worst game I've ever seen.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers is just so frustrating. Just with not really seeming to want to be there at the beginning of the season, the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
Now apparently he has his poor toe. So he's their guy. He's their leader. He's Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know. Hot take. I don't think he's going to be there next year. I just don't see it happening.
I'm not sure. I feel like you're probably right, because I don't think Aaron wants to be there, and I think Green Bay's organization is also pretty dysfunctional, given they've had Aaron Rodgers for this many years, had Devontae Adams, and they still wouldn't draft another receiver for him, and instead drafted a running back in the second round while they had Aaron Jones. It just doesn't add up. I just think that they look at Jordan Love and they saw what they saw against the Chiefs, who were struggling, and they go, I don't see it either. I didn't think he was anything special.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, going on to the next one, we'll kind of, get through this one. Pretty boring game out of the Bengals and Raiders. The Bengals handled them pretty easily. The Raiders have looked horrible. They just, I feel bad for them just with the whole Gruden situation, Ruggs, everything going on with them. Derek Carr hasn't looked good. There was a lot of promise for them, but they just have looked bad. I think they've lost 3 straight since they beat the Eagles. Have another opportunity on Thursday against a depleted Dallas team. So we'll see what happens in that game. But, they just haven't looked good. Bengals looked solid. Joe Mixon went off. Mix and match. Speaking of match, this is brought to you by Match.com.
That's right.
But
if you guys actually want to sponsor us, that'd be cool.
Jamar Chase didn't do a whole lot, but he caught a touchdown. But Bengals are looking solid. And then, heading over to mentioned Dallas. They just looked horrible this week. They didn't have Amari Cooper out there. Zeke has just not looked like the Zeke of years past. CD is in concussion protocol. He's questionable for the game. Dallas, who everyone thought was running away at the NFC East, is kind of falling backwards now. So I don't know what their deal is. What's going to happen with them? Mahomes hasn't looked too great. He didn't look good in that game, even though they got the dub. But it was really the Chiefs defense that won them that game,
which is surprising because the Chiefs defense has been terrible all year. Which is also, they have some really, really good pieces. Chris Jones is a monster, and you have Tyrann Mathieu in the secondary as well. And even L'Jarius Sneed had showed some real promise from last year as a rookie. And man, they just they do not look the same. I think most people probably threw Mahomes into the MVP conversation. They threw the Chiefs as Super Bowl favorites to start the year, myself included.
I
Yeah.
still believe, I told you this earlier, I still think the Chiefs will at least get to the AFC Championship game. They have a bye this week. They have some time to regroup. It's Patrick Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Like, their offense has looked shaky. Their O-line hasn't looked great, but getting Clyde back definitely helps.
He looked
I just
good.
think that offense is too talented, not to make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just, they're incredibly talented. I just think based off eyeballing it, that they've just they've struggled. They have barely gotten through these games. I mean, even against Jordan Love, where they should have killed them, and they look terrible.
The thing that pissed me off the most about that game, you and I were watching this game together, was the Clyde touchdown.
Takes his pick. Touchdown, Edwards-Helaire. Welcome back. And a flag in the end zone at the end of the play, and we may have another taunting call.
And this is a whole nother conversation, but when he scored that touchdown and pointed at the player, it's like the refs are just all over the players' asses this year. No fun league anymore. It's like you have to score your touchdown, hand it to the ref, and walk back in a single file line. Like, like back in middle school for recess when you'd have the line leader and you'd have to get in line behind everybody.
Yeah, I was the kid that always was yanked by the teacher to get back in line.
That's kind of what they have to do. They just have to be in single file, be quiet, no fun. I don't know. It's annoying, but
that whole thing is crazy to me because this is a different. I forget who this was. Who was saying this, but it was some NFL player who made an excellent point. They worked their asses off their entire lives to get to this position.
It was Ryan Clark.
Right. It was Ryan Clark. Yep. But they worked their whole lives to get to this one opportunity to make that one play.
Mm-hmm.
So they celebrate because they did something that they have wanted to do their whole careers. And then they get a taunting penalty.
Yeah. It's
for just celebrating. I mean, pointing like that. It's just like there's no line being drawn because that was the equivalent of Justin Herbert getting gut punched by Cam Hayward. Like that was the same penpenalty.
Yeah.
It's just it's a disaster.
I think that's a good transition to make because that was another fantastic game. One of the better Sunday Night Football games we've had this year with the Steelers and Chargers. The Chargers were running away with that game, and the Steelers, kept fighting their way back into it. Chargers pulled out in the end. I mean, Austin Eckler is just unbelievable. Doesn't have too many hairs on his head, but he doesn't need them because he's just been a beast this year. He's stayed healthy.
I think it makes him more aerodynamic.
Yeah, more aerodynamic, right. Keenan Allen, just a machine. Justin Herbert, he's their quarterback. I mean, he was unbelievable. He's been fantastic this year.
He's been fantastic. Miami must feel so terrible about themselves.
Oh yeah. I've seen memes all over the place, like the SpongeBob meme when Squidward looking out the window. That's kind of it right there. It kind of encapsulates it all. But Steelers look good. Big Ben, I think it's time for him to hang it up, but he still looks solid out there. Deontay Johnson.
Game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They found their running back, it seems like, since Le'Veon. They finally found their guy. I mean, James Conner was solid, but I think Najee. Yeah, he was just so good at Alabama. That was a big pick for them.
Mm-hmm.
A little depleted, I feel like, at the receiver position. I think they got I think they need to part ways with Juju. Claypool's a beast. He didn't do a whole lot in that game, but they got their Heath Miller 2.0 and Pat Freiermuth. But it was just a high scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to watch. Came down to the wire. Definitely two teams that I think the Chargers should definitely be a playoff team, and the Steelers could find their way in as well.
Yeah, the Steelers would be an interesting playoff team. I feel like their defense is kind of underwhelmed a little bit, especially in this in the secondary this year. But I mean, that front line is insane. They have, Cam Hayward's ridiculous. TJ Watt is insane. Insane. They still have Devin Bush in the middle for the middle linebacker position as well. I mean, they and Minka in the secondary too. Like they have some very good players. But yeah, I think I definitely agree with you. I mean, their options are, they're solid. Like I think Freiermuth is a good player. I think Najee has been incredible for what he's given because that O-line is awful. And that was known coming into the year that the O-line would be that bad, but they're atrocious. So he gets tackled immediately, or at least they try to, and then he breaks through. But like, I just think they did not make a contingency plan for Ben. So what is Dwayne Haskins supposed to take the reins next year? Are they going to draft someone like that guy out of Pitt or Ole Miss? Like, what do you think they'll do?
Yeah, I think they could keep him at Heinz Field. Hatchett has looked really great for Pittsburgh this year, but Haskins wasn't the guy in Washington. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on him because maybe he does have a spark because he did look pretty good at Ohio State, but I think they definitely need to prepare for that because maybe Ben has one more year in him. Who knows? But most likely, his time's coming to an end for sure. The clock's ticking, but. And then just to finish it off with Monday Night Football last night, I'll let you take the reins on this one because I know.
Well, there's actually one that we missed.
Really?
I know our friend Jack would be really upset if we didn't get to it.
I mentioned them briefly. I talked about the Dolphins Jets.
You really only need a brief mention of the Dolphins and the Jets because of how atrocious that was. But I think it is just really funny that Elijah Moore continues to have an incredible end to his rookie campaign with everyone besides from the guy they drafted to be the future in Zach Wilson. I think Jets fans don't even know what they want with Mike White. The fact that was even a question as Mike White being a guy who was off the practice squad, it's a great story that he had played that well. But they drafted Zach Wilson 2 overall. Like, the odds that was going to happen, it's only happened once with Tom Brady, and then I guess twice actually with Russell Wilson as well.
I kind of said it from the jump. Like, I could be wrong because I think Zach Wilson definitely has talent and he looked good at BYU, but I just don't know how you don't take Justin Fields over him because I just think he's, he hasn't been great on the Bears, but I just feel like he would provide more of a spark to that team than Zach Wilson will because he obviously got hurt, but it just kind of seems they're like kind of already down on him already.
Especially Jets fans. And I didn't even understand it when the draft happened, but I didn't get why it was a foregone conclusion that he would for sure be the second pick. I get why Trevor Lawrence was number 1. Like that always made sense. But Trey Lance was in question. If you really redrafted now, I feel like they'd have to take a really strong look at Mac Jones. I don't know, but
I wouldn't have predicted that. I didn't think Mac Jones would be as good as he's been this year.
Not me either. But yeah, okay. Well, let's do this.
Good luck.
It is pain. It's so much pain.
It brings me joy.
I hate you. It is the worst thing in the world to watch. And as a New York fan all around, the fact that I say that like the Knicks are the team to watch of the New York teams is so crazy. And this game went exactly as you would expect. Tom Brady wiped the floor with us. No shock at all. Gronk looked incredible in his return from injury.
You're welcome.
It's just a tough offense. It's a really tough offense to watch. Jason Garrett is a horrible offensive coordinator and should and will, especially by the end of this year, I hope, be fired. They just look terrible, man. Daniel Jones, I feel like he's like okay. I can't say for sure if I think he's a quarterback of the future. If he's not at this point, I think it's still early to say. But I mean, you can't make the excuse that he doesn't have the weapons anymore. Like he had the weapons yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about, before the show started about it. But how the left tackle Andrew Thomas has more touchdowns than both their prized receiver from free agency and Kenny Galladay, who is a touchdown machine in Detroit, which maybe Matt Stafford made him look better. Who knows? And Kadarius Toney. The combination of those two do not have the same amount of touchdowns as their left tackle. Like that is insanity. But man, it is disappointing.
I know you guys have been depleted with injuries this year. You know, all 4 of your receivers are getting hurt, and you had the talents there, like Shepard, Slayton, Evan Ingram. You have the talent. The talent's definitely there. It's just I don't know if it's an offensive line thing. I don't know if it's a Daniel Jones thing. I don't know if it's a coaching thing, but you have the talent's definitely there. Kadarius Toney was an awesome draft pick. He's shown what he's capable of. I know it's like I said, it's injuries. It's really been a story of injuries for the Giants so far this year. Like your best player in Saquon, he's been non-existent the past 2 years. Really, he looked great in that Saints game. Like you said earlier, just unfortunate injuries to a very talented player. Maybe he's dominated the Eagles in his career, so maybe this week we'll see a little bit more out of him. But it's it's really just I think it's just the combination of injuries and maybe some coaching issues for sure.
Yeah, it's really disappointing because I feel like it's a really obvious foundational strategy that when you're building a team, you probably should start with the O-line and D-line, and then you build back, and obviously quarterback being the next most important position. But if you even think about, like, you could have the most talented QB. You could have, you had Deshaun Watson, who obviously has a lot of legal issues to sort out and is probably an awful human being. But as a pure football player, he's so talented, and he threw for, the league leading amount of yards last year.
On a horrible team.
Nowhere. That's what my point is. Like, they still went nowhere. You could have them like an incredible quarterback, but that alone won't do it. So having an incredible quarterback, having a really iffy quarterback and a terrible O-line, you could have Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson on both sides, and nothing will change.
Absolutely, and I think the matchup this Sunday is going to be an interesting one. I know the Eagles are probably favorited in this game, but I don't know. It's in MetLife. It's a divisional matchup. Both teams don't like each other. I don't like you. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a close game. I really do. Because as great as Jalen Hurts has looked, he hasn't proven really, to me at least, that he is able to throw the football. Devontae Smith was obviously an excellent draft pick for us.
Yep.
But I need to see more out of him. I would like to see more out of Dallas Goedert with that new contract he just got. But it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a good time with the boys. But it's going to be fun. And that kind of wraps up the week. We'll obviously recap next week when we get there. But since it's a holiday, I figured why not? We got 3 awesome. Thanksgiving football is always a great time. Pound some drinks, pound some turkey, watch some football, but
pound some pie.
But I told you, like, I don't get why they do the Bears-Lions game every year. I get it's a tradition, but it's just such a boring game to watch. It's a game I have to drink for. It's why I'm an alcoholic.
Me too. And the Giants.
Who do you think wins that game?
That game is going to be so terrible. I think that the Lions still aren't going to get their first win. I think they're not talented enough. They're just so terrible. Jared Goff wasn't even that good on the Rams, but like on a Lions team that only, like, if I told you or if I asked you if you can name their top 3 receivers, do you think you could do it if I gave you $100?
On the Lions,
Yep,
Calvin Johnson,
that's right.
Marvin Jones Jr.,
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift.
I mean, that's right.
No. The answer is no. It's like Saint. I don't. Is Saint Nimius Equimius Philemius Brown?
It's his
That's
brother.
his brother.
So it's Amon-Ra. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And honestly, I couldn't tell you the other two either because, I mean, do you have like
something Raymond?
Khalif Raymond.
Khalif Raymond.
This is embarrassing, but
it's just the whole offense runs through DeAndre Swift.
It's DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, and those are the only 2 real foundational pieces they have besides from Penei Sewell, who they drafted this year. It's just those 3. Like they don't have, and Frank Ragnow actually is a very good offensive lineman as well. But that's all they have. Like they drafted Okuda, who has looked horrible so far.
Okuda
Matata.
Yeah, and isn't he hurt?
Yeah, so he had a really tough start to the year. He looked awful, and then he got hurt. So he's had a really miserable career thus far, which is unfortunate. But I feel like the writing was on the wall the second he got drafted to the Lions. I just think that they can't keep up with, and it pains me to say it out loud, but like Andy Dalton, I guess. Andy Dalton and Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's look great, but I just think that David Montgomery will run all over them. I think Darnell Mooney will be running past everyone because their secondary is actually pathetic. And I don't
I know they lost Khalil Mack for the year.
They did lose Camille, yeah, but
the defense still looks solid against the Ravens, even though
they still have. And I might need to be fact checked on this, but I think they still have Akeem Hicks starting. I don't think he got hurt, and they have good enough talent. Like Jalen Johnson's a really, really, really good corner, and has been since he entered the league. I believe out of Utah, but that might be incorrect. He's a very good player. Their defense is still tough. I feel like they're built on it. Matt Nagy still should get fired at the end of this year. He's been a disaster, but I don't see how they lose.
I agree with you. I think the Bears win that one. Not going to be a very thrilling game, but.
So what do you think about the Cowboys game against the Raiders? With them not having CD probably because of concussion protocol, Amari Cooper.
Without their top 2 receivers and Zeke's battling through an injury as well, I think the Cowboys will win. I do, but I think the Raiders are going to make it a close game. Like I said, the Raiders have lost. I think they've dropped 3 straight. They just don't have anything really going in their offense right now, but it's going to be fun to watch Diggs on Waller. I think that'll be a fun matchup. But Waller's just as quiet as he's been this year. He's still very talented. Josh Jacobs has been quiet too, but I think he could have a solid game. It's just it's another it's not going to be a high scoring game in my opinion. It's going to be a second straight game that's not high scoring. I know they say Dallas is America's team. Put them center stage on Thanksgiving, but I don't know. Dak's really going to have to, ball out. He's going to have to play really well. It's like one of those games where you want to see Zeke get 30 touches for 200 yards and 3 tutties. That's what they would need to win, but Zeke hasn't looked, dominant out there. So I just don't think it's going to be a very thrilling game to watch, but as much as it pains me to say it, I think it's an upset could be in store, but I think Dallas will probably, take the W.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, when they're like you said, like ideally they would give Zeke the ball and give him like 25 touches or whatever. Give Tony Pollard has looked unbelievable this year.
Mm-hmm.
Give him the rest of the workload and kind of build it off the run game. But for how much sense that makes, I just feel like Cedric Wilson and
Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz.
I would play him this week for sure. Give you a little fantasy advice if you want it.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're both losing teams, so Actually, you're even, aren't you? 5-5.
I'm 5-6.
5-6. So yeah. So I mean, get dead even, and then we can talk, and then you can give me some more advice.
All right, I'll talk to you next week.
Horrible this year. But I just, I mean, the Raiders are fine. I think they have, you touched on this a little bit earlier when we were going with the recap, but I just think that, man, they've had a tough year. Truly resilient team. I would say, and like Derek Carr is an incredible leader. If you watch that press conference after the stuff that happened with Henry Ruggs, obviously prayers go out to that family. That is just so terrible. But I mean, they have battled through a lot of adversity. Hunter Renfrow has actually looked very good this year. I think Bryan Edwards has been kind of non-existent, which is unfortunate because they drafted him, I think, the 3rd round, and they expected really big things from him. He obviously has the physique for it, but he just has not looked good. And then you just have Darren Waller. And I made this joke after, if you remember, at week 1, and it hasn't held true to the same extent that I think it will for this game. But Derek Carr's reads are like Darren Waller, screw it, I'm throwing to Darren Waller. And then Darren Waller again.
Yeah.
And then Hunter Renfrow.
Even last year, like, Waller was clearly his favorite option. And I know Ruggs was that deep threat ball, but assuming, I mean, I don't know if his career's done, but he's definitely done in Las Vegas. They just need receivers. Like, they haven't really had receivers in a long time. They haven't had a solid wide receiver one since Amari Cooper. And Michael Crabtree. So they need to go out and get wide receivers. But we'll see what happens. But then brings us to the Thursday night game. We'll be tired. I'll probably be sleeping by that point just from being in a food coma. But do you think that Thursday night game, which I guess is the most exciting game out of the 3, do you think the Bills on the road? I think they're on the road. Do the Bills on the road get that? Do they bounce back and get that win over the Saints? Do you think?
I think that one's really a toss-up. I'd like to say that the Bills should run away with that game, but I just think that they've been really underwhelming comparatively to like what we thought they would be this year. Their run game is pretty much non-existent. I mean, their best running back really is Josh Allen, and I don't think it's even close because Zach Moss. I mean, now they're throwing in Matt Breida, who's not that good, and you have Zach
Moss got me 0.5 points this week. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than 0. Like he felt better
than -1 for my kicker.
Yeah, -1 for mine. At least we had that.
We shared that.
That's right. I just think that the Bills ultimately, I think they're going to win. I just think that the Saints can't keep, like, as long as Trevor Siemian is leading that team, which he will be, I guess, for the foreseeable future until the season's over at least. I can't see them winning. But again, like there have been a crazy amount of underdog wins this year, and I think it's absolutely possible. The underdogs, I think, have the majority right now in terms of like betting odds. I think, didn't you read somewhere something like that?
I think so. I think you're right.
With like the betting $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that Josh Allen's probably going to lead them to a W. Do you feel the same?
I'd agree with that. I don't know if Kamara's going to play or not, but that offense is just not looking too good. I know they're home, but yeah, I think the Bills just need a bit. That was an embarrassing loss for them this past week. I think they're going to have to get their shit together. And I believe it was last Thanksgiving when they dominated the Cowboys on Thanksgiving football. So they seem to play well on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Josh Allen's going to turn it around. I'd say it's going to be could be a good game, but I think the Bills will definitely ultimately come away with the win.
Yeah, ultimately this Turkey Thursday, we're dubbing the Turkey Trot Thursday. Actually, I think that's just a race that exists in my town, so never mind. But I don't know. This week is kind of underwhelming. I think I don't know. I mean, I really feel actually like usually the Thanksgiving games are not that good, and probably the reason is like what you were saying before with the Lions and the Bears always having to be on it. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Like it'll be interesting to see with the Dallas's defense if they can continue ascending and see if they can stop the Raiders. And the Bills, I mean, their defense just got obliterated, so we'll see how they bounce back as well.
Yeah, we'll see. Looking forward to week 12. So yeah, there we go. It's Jumpstart Sports for you. Jumpstart in the week for you. There's our first episode. Many more to come. Glad we finally get to do this, Jay. I know this is something we've been looking forward to for a long time. Recapping week 11 to start things off. We'll have more football to look forward to. We'll get some basketball in there as well. Find some other things we could talk about. But yeah, that's about it. It's a lot of fun. Jay, have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. And
you as well, my man.
See you for the next episode. All right.
Damn right.
All right.